Hi, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of this 3-day free eco-printing bootcamp. As you can hear, my alarm just went off there telling me I should have been online. I hope you can all hear me. Shauna, could you just put your thumbs up, please, if you can hear me? Perfect. I hope I don't sound a little bit scatty at the beginning because I literally have just arrived back from a trip to Dublin. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicola Brown. I'm a textile artist based in rural Ireland, and I'm developing a sustainable textile practice. So that means being as environmentally mindful and health conscious as possible. And I love to grow all my own plants to use in the eco-printing studio or gather them from the hedgerows around me. And regardless of where you live, whether you are in an urban or a rural environment, you are going to be able to transform fabric and garments using the eco-printing process. So feel free to drop a comment into the chat saying where you are tuning in from. And I'd like to introduce Shauna for those of you who haven't been on one of these live streams before. Hey, Shauna.
Hello, everybody. How are we?
So Shauna is Irish, but at the moment she's traveling in Europe. So she's actually in Switzerland at the moment, and she's going to be helping me and fielding your questions and keeping an eye on the comments. So if Shauna actually makes a comment or answers one of your questions in the chat, it's going to come up as my name. So don't think that I'm also typing while I'm presenting to you. I'm not. It will be Shauna answering that or highlighting something for me. So thank you very much, Shauna. I'm going to remove her video now and just let her start actually checking in and seeing how things are going. And if you have a question, there are going to be times when I invite you to make a question. So the easiest thing to do for Shauna to find your question and then let me know that it is there is if you put 3 question marks at the beginning of your comment and 3 at the end. That is much easier for Shauna to identify that it's a question. And many questions that you may ask, for example, about the best vegetation to eco-print with, that I'm going to answer that tomorrow. But it's important to say that all the information I share today about upcycling garments, about setting up your dirty pot, etc., and about preparing your garments, all of that information may be applied to preparing fabric as well. So although the main focus of this particular free bootcamp is about upcycling garments in a health conscious and an environmentally mindful way, this information applies to fabric. For example, many of my followers are felt makers, and I mean, I was not interested in eco-printing for a long time. I was only interested in making felt. But if you're a felt maker and wondering whether eco-printing is for you, felt is the most wonderful fabric to eco-print on. So I'm going to just do like a 2-minute recap about what we discussed yesterday, just to put things in context. So we all have choices to make every day, whether it's about sustainability, about the food that we eat, where that may have traveled from. We have economic choices, and it's very easy to get bogged down. And a big question might be, why upcycle garments or things like vintage linen tablecloths? I actually saw a question in the Facebook group today, but I haven't had time to answer. Or maybe it came up as a comment on YouTube. Can you eco-print doilies? And I'm not sure if you all know what a doily is, but it would be something that you would put maybe on your table or on a tray that would go underneath either a plate or a glass, something to protect your table. And often it would be made from a very fine linen or cotton with beautiful crochet around the outside. And the answer is yes, you can eco-print your doilies. So the information that I'm sharing applies whether you're eco-printing garments or whether you're eco-printing fabric. But the main focus of this free 3-day bootcamp is about getting the foundations nailed in so that you can go out and you can try and upcycle some of your garments. Then tomorrow, after the 3rd day is over, I'm just going to announce I'm releasing something on Thursday. It's a $49 product where I'll go through everything and have loads of videos, etc., to share with you. And I'll be chatting live to people every day for a total of 8 days running. And then we'll have a little sort of a graduation party. So some of you may be interested in that. There is absolutely no pressure or obligation, but that is going to happen. And I will go through things in more detail for that. And the simple answer about, the simple and wonderful answer about upcycling garments, you're creating something stylish and individual to wear. You don't look like everybody else. And doing something, even if it is only a small thing that is environmentally mindful and health conscious, it makes you feel good. And when you tie that in with reducing the amount of waste that goes, for example, to landfill, that's really, really good. And I shared some statistics yesterday that were quite shocking. So, for example, this is just incredible. And this is in the US. The US throws away the equivalent, each person. So the US throws away the equivalent of about 70 pairs of pants per person in waste from clothes and footwear. Now, to be honest, that doesn't mean that every single person is throwing away 70 pairs of pants, but many textile companies and garment companies, they actually don't, if they don't sell all their items, they actually throw them away. They don't even let them into the supply chain. So each person in the US, there's the equivalent of 70 pairs of pants per person thrown away every year. That's the US. And here's a statistic from the UK, also absolutely incredible. So a study from the UK found that 1 in 3 people who replied to this questionnaire, and this information is coming from Bernardo's. They are a charity, a children's charity, actually, I think, and also from the Environmental Protection Agency. And so the study showed in the UK that 1 in 3 people, like absolutely extraordinary, 33% of people who responded to this questionnaire and survey, they consider clothes old after 1 or 2 wears. And I mean, that's amazing. And then they just throw them out. The majority of the people. Some recycle them or upcycle or give them to charity shops, but most people throw them out. And I cannot imagine myself thinking that something is old after 1 to 3 wears. And this is one of the problems with fast fashion as well. You know, I mean, I do have some fleeces in my wardrobe that I bought years ago. And when I say years ago, I mean years ago. And fleece can be made from upcycled materials or old soda cans or whatever, but it tends to be a polyester fabric. I also have some that are primarily wool, but they're very much more expensive. And one of the things with fabric like a fleece or polyester is it releases all these things into the water systems. But the interesting thing is it releases far more harmful things for the first few washes. And then the more you wear it and the more you wash it, the less it's actually releasing back into the environment. So if you think about those people who wear things once, twice, or 3 times and then scrap it, if they're washing it, they would only be washing it a maximum of twice if they're throwing it out after 3 wears. And so that means that there is actually much more pollution with that individual garment from the consumer's perspective than if they kept it for much longer. And also a lot of the environmental impact and the health impact is in manufacturing the garments as opposed to the consumer. But as a consumer, like you may notice if you were here yesterday, I'm wearing the same top as I was wearing yesterday. There's absolutely no need to wash things after one wash, unless you're extremely hot or one wear, unless you're extremely hot and sweaty. So you can wear things more times before you wash them. Don't allow them to get so dirty that they absolutely aren't going to come clean. And items like this, I would wash with olive oil soap in my washing machine. And all the information that I gave you about eco printing, whether it is eco printing on a protein-based fabric such as wool, silk, cashmere, yak, mohair, quivet, any fiber that comes from an animal and then is transformed into a garment. You know, the fiber is spun and then it's either knitted or woven into a garment. Any animal-based fiber is considered to be protein-based. And as a new eco printer, working with protein-based fabric is the easiest way of getting bright and colorful prints when you are working without traditional powdered mordants. And I think the top challenges that people who are new to eco printing face, and the top questions, you know, time is a big issue. Have I got time to do this process? What supplies do I need? The space that you're working in, you know, many people are working in their kitchen rather than outside, you know, in an apartment. Is it safe to process eco prints in a kitchen? And I'm going to go through the main eco printing process tomorrow by showing you a piece from start to finish that I've eco printed. But today I'm going to just give you the information about how to prepare the different types of fabric and how to prepare your dirty pot. And I'll talk about the dirty pot. But many people have had bad experience eco printing and they are not getting the prints that they want. And then lack of time. I've added that in there. That's again one of the absolute most crucial things people have said to me in surveys that I have actually sent out. So for those of you who are new to this whole concept, or maybe you're moving over from working with traditional powdered mordants, many of you may be asking, what is a mordant? And in simple terms, a mordant is a chemical. It's a metal salt, and it has been used traditionally to prepare your fabric before you would do any natural dyeing. And the reason for this is that fabric will not automatically receive the dye from leaves, vegetation, and in some cases flowers. It won't receive that dye and retain it. So you may get some color and some prints, but it will all wash out, or else you will get no color and prints, or you get very muddy results. And the reason for this is, unless you use those chemicals, those metal salts to fix the color, you would be preparing your fabric before printing by giving it a good wash, by then preparing a mordant solution, and by processing your fabric in the mordant solution. And that would all happen before you would eco print. And when you do that, the chemical, the metal salt, it structurally changes the composition of your fabric. So once you have mordanted fabric correctly, you can't wash that mordant out. So it's like impregnated into the fabric, and that will help the fabric receive the dye when we are eco printing. And then you could be asking yourself, how does working in the dirty pot replace the traditional powdered mordant? So in fact, the dirty pot, we're using the pot and anything we put in it as a mordant. Any metal we put in the pot and the composition of the pot itself, it is going to be the mordant. It's going to act in a small way, not as strong as using the powdered chemicals. And also you won't be able to get the same results from all the vegetation you can use if you use mordants, but it is more environmentally friendly. it's more health conscious, and you can get wonderful results. So I'm going to take you through that. I'm going to explain now about eco printing, first of all, on protein-based fabric, which is the wool, silk, etc., and then on cellulose-based fabric. But I'm just going to check and see if there are any questions now. If you have a question about something now, I'm just going to check, drop it in the comments. So there is a question here about, is there a difference between printing on protein-based fabrics and plant-based fabrics, such as cotton? The only difference is in how you prepare your fabric before you eco-print. And also you need to understand that with the method that I'm showing you today for preparing your fabric and for eco-printing, which I will go into in more detail tomorrow, that you will get different results whether you eco-print on the protein or on the plant-based. But once you've prepared your fabric and it goes into the pot, it goes in for the same length of time, and it's washed out. Everything else is the same. It's only the initial preparation is different. So that's something I'm going to go through the step by step tomorrow and show you an example of me printing something. And Cynthia is saying, yeah, she's horrified by the statistics. So can she get the slides to share everywhere? Cynthia, that's a great question. So what I will do is, I'm not sure if you're actually registered for the bootcamp or if you're just joining in and watching, but if you register for the bootcamp, I'm going to send everybody who registers using the link, and I'm going to ask Shauna to drop the link in the chat and pin it to the top of the chat, but it will also be in the video description. So if you register for the bootcamp, Cynthia, you will get a thank you gift from me in about a week's time or 10 days time after the bootcamp ends, and I'm going to share resources with you. And Shauna will remind me. I will actually share the source of those statistics, and there is one more which I will just put up on the screen now, and this is a Dr. Alan Hudd, and it's just extraordinary. So within the fashion and textile sector, the single worst contributor to climate change is dyeing and finishing of fabric. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. And they are responsible, those two aspects of the textile industry are responsible for 3% of global CO2 emissions. And that is predicted to increase to more than 10% by 2050, unless we do something about it. And that is more CO2 than produced by shipping and aviation combined. I mean, the mind absolutely boggles. So I will make sure that there are links to those, to information like that. So for those of you who are actually interested in the statistics and to the articles where I took those little clips from, I will include that in the thank you information that I'm sending out, so you can get that. And Martina is asking, what is the content of the dirty pot? I'm about to tell you. And Kat is saying she has used salt ash for color dye. Salt ash is not a mordant. Things that are very alkaline or acidic, they may be modifiers, but they're not mordants. A mordant chemically alters the structure of the fabric, and you can't wash it out again afterwards. So Laurie has a question that, Laurie, that might actually be a question for tomorrow night, if you don't mind, because it's more complex. Laurie's question is about, or maybe I'll answer it. If I dye using a mordant on cellulose, don't like the results, put it in the dirty pot, how do the results change from using just the dirty pot? They're definitely going to change because you've already done something to your fabric. So they will be totally different because you've already done something that you're not happy and you are eco-printing on top of that. That will be totally different than if you never mordanted and you eco-printed on the fabric as it was initially. And somebody's wondering where you buy huge pots. You just have to keep looking for them in secondhand stores, ask your friends, in antique shops, or you can also buy pots if you're very, very lucky. But I get most of mine from salvage yards, antique shops, and thrift stores, and asking people. So I would like to go down through the actual, I'm going to start this because some of the questions that Sean is highlighting are actually questions that I'm just about to answer with the content. So I'm just going to add this to the stream. So the first thing I'm going to discuss is about setting up a dirty pot, just the basics about the dirty pot. And I cannot recommend enough that you use an aluminium pot. If you are new to eco-printing, or if you are familiar with eco-printing using mordants, but you have not eco-printed in the dirty pot, you will most likely have been using a stainless steel pot or something that is non-reactive. And a non-reactive pot is a pot that does not react with whatever is in the pot. So you get a known result in a stainless steel or a glass pot. But when we're eco-printing and using the pot as mordant, we need to get a reaction. And so a reactive pot would be aluminium, a cast iron pot, a copper pot. Those are all reactive. And of the three of them, the aluminium pot is the best and the easiest for people to get good results from. My favorite pots are aluminium and cast iron, but cast iron gives very dark results. I personally love that, but not everybody does. So I cannot urge you enough how to get an aluminium pot, or to get an aluminium pot. However, if you don't have one and you want to get going at the end of this boot camp, or you want to participate in the event I'm hosting next week, the 8-day event with me, you can work in a stainless steel or any other non-reactive pot if you put plenty of scrunched up pieces of aluminium foil, or you may say aluminum foil or tin foil. You can put that foil in the pot. It will help make it more like aluminium, but it does not replace aluminium. And also you will be putting something, a piece of rusty metal or something in it. So, but for the purpose of this boot camp, for this free boot camp, I want you to understand you cannot beat an aluminium pot. There is no substitute for it if you want to make a dirty pot. And then how you actually prepare your fabric for the dirty pot. Oh, this is, sorry, this is not the right slide. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, this slide is correct. So there was a question, Kat had a question about wool, silk, and what other fabrics are protein based. So Kat, silk, wool, cashmere, which comes from a goat, mohair comes from a goat. Basically, any fiber that comes from an animal is considered to be protein based. And I prepare all my protein based fabric by washing it with, I use an olive oil soap usually, but any gentle soap will be perfect. Anything that you would get maybe in the health food shop, or if you're at a fair and somebody makes handmade soap. So any soap like that is perfect, but do not use a detergent. And do not use any, I cannot urge you enough, do not use any liquid that is billed as being a green, sorry, I meant to add myself to the machine there. Do not remove any or use any liquid washing liquid thing that is billed to be a green, environmentally friendly one, because you may actually discover that even though it's meant to be environmentally friendly, which it might be, it has some sort of a natural stain blaster included in it to remove stains. And at the end of the day, an eco-print is a stain. And I had a situation where I was printing cotton in Tucson in Arizona, and I had some marvelous eco prints from grapefruit leaves. They gave really beautiful green eco prints. And excuse me, when I was visiting my friend Jan in Kentucky and hosting some workshops in Kentucky, I used her green, environmentally friendly washing liquid, and all the eucalyptus prints remained the same, and the green from, which had been very strong from the grapefruit, was gone totally. So don't use any sort of a liquid thing that is meant to be environmentally friendly. Just use soap. So I do have a little video on YouTube that you can look at if you want to learn how to just grate your soap and make up a liquid soap solution. I just add hot water to my grated olive oil soap, and I add water and I make it into a sort of a gloopy solution, and I just put a teaspoon or two of that into my washing machine. You can wash and prepare all your fabric in the washing machine. If you have a modern machine, just do a 20 or 30 degree wool wash. But of course, you can prepare it by hand as well. I'm going to tell you in a few minutes how to prepare your cellulose fabric. So at the moment, we're talking about silk, wool, cashmere, mohair, alpaca, llama, any fiber that comes from an animal. You're going to just give that a wash either by hand or in your washing machine. And then the night before you eco print, you are going to soak your garment or your piece of fabric or your piece of felt in water overnight. And then it's going to be squeezed so that it's damp and not wet. And before eco printing, you're going to sprinkle it with vinegar. And then you're going to make your eco bundle, and you're going to process it for the length of time that the vegetation you are using needs. I am going to answer questions and share some of my favorite vegetation tomorrow, but I'm not going to, this is a free boot camp. I'm not giving you like a really, really long list of vegetation, but I'm going to give you certain vegetation that I know will give you success if you follow what I recommend. And the whole idea of this boot camp is to give you information that will work. But as soon as you deviate and you use one leaf that I don't recommend or that I haven't mentioned, or if you add anything that I don't recommend into your dirty pot, you are going to get a different result. So to go back to Anne Moore's question, the protein-based fabric we are washing with a gentle soap at 20 or 30 degrees, and then we are soaking it overnight in water, and before it's eco printed, we're going to sprinkle it with vinegar. Vinegar is not a it's not a mordant. So with vinegar, if we wash the fabric after the vinegar soak, that vinegar would wash out. Whereas if it was a if it was mordanted, it wouldn't wash out. So now I just want to show you here. This is a piece I did the other day, and this piece was done really simply, and it was done in the dirty pot. I thought hang on one second here. Somehow I'm missing a slide. Okay, so it's because I was on the road all day and only back just before we started. So the slide that I'm missing shows you how to set up your dirty pot. Maybe I don't even have it as a slide. Maybe, here we go. Okay, here it is. So you need your aluminium pot, or if you're using stainless steel or a glass or an enamel pot, you need to put in some crumpled aluminium foil or tin foil. So you need your aluminium pot. You would half fill it with water. You would add approximately a pint of vinegar, or if you work in liters, half a liter of vinegar. And you can add, and if you're working in an aluminium pot, you don't have to add a piece of rusty metal to the pot, but I like to do that. And then you boil it for an hour, and at that stage, it is ready to use. Now, I'm going to go back to this piece here. So I printed this the other day. So this is a cashmere, silk, and wool jumper, or sweater, as you may say. I printed this in a new dirty pot that had no rusty metal in the pot. But I think you should be able to see that there are still diagonal lines and stripe marks on the shoulder that are a different color than the onion skins that I used to print that piece. And that's because the aluminium is having a reaction with the vinegar. And I'm going to take you step by step tomorrow and show you making that piece so that you can see how it works. But there are some things that you can add into the dirty pot. And these will give more depth of background color. And I recommend that if you want to get more depth of background color, that you add eucalyptus leaves. You can also add eucalyptus bark if you have some. And you can add onion skins. So it's only eucalyptus bark, eucalyptus leaves, or onion skins. I recommend, if you want success, you add nothing else. You are not tempted to throw any leaves from your garden into the pot, that those are the only things you put in if you actually want to have success. So as well, obviously, as your vegetation and your dirty pot liquid, your fabric, you're going to need some string, you're going to need scissors, and you probably need a towel. I'm going to go through that tomorrow, because as I share with you images of me working and creating a piece, you'll actually see the tools and the equipment that I use. But I want to just now have a brief chat about cellulose fabric and show you some examples. I think I'll actually show you some more examples of upcycled pieces that are made, that are protein fabric. So here you can see, do you remember I shared a dicky with you yesterday? It was the top of a jumper that I had cut off. You can see that, me wearing that around my neck. And then the pieces that are on my arm there, those are actually now arm warmers, and they are eco-printed with onion skins and achiote or annatto seeds. As is, you know, the neck piece there is printed with onion skins. Here I actually have a backpack and a scarf and the arm warmers. And that backpack, if you remember yesterday, I said that I love upcycling other things. When I'm looking in the thrift store, I'm not just looking for the fabric and things. The backpack straps of this piece actually were from one of my own old backpacks. And the backpack that I had got loads of holes in it after about 4 years use. So I dismantled it and I just reused the things. So here you can see a silk scarf, you can see arm warmers, and you can just see those backpack straps. I'm just going to see, have any of you any questions now about protein-based fabric? Because now is the time for me to answer them. I'm just going to check here. So Sarah is saying she doesn't add iron to the pot anymore because she prefers the color without it. Does it affect the printing not to have iron? So Sarah, that's a really, really good question. So you are an experienced eco printer, but for those of you who are not experienced, the iron in the pot, the rusty metal in the pot, actually helps make things more light fast and color fast, because that's what it's mimicking ferrous sulfate as a mordant. Ferrous sulfate as a powdered mordant definitely helps make things more light and wash fast. So if you know your vegetation, Sarah, and you're reusing your pot liquid and it's an aluminium pot and you're getting good prints, I would have no worry at all. But there are some leaves that need that extra help with the iron. For example, the piece that I'm wearing now, this is printed with smoke bush or cotinus leaves, and I'm talking about cellulose in a minute. If I didn't have plenty of iron with these leaves, I wouldn't get that color. It just wouldn't come. Okay. And yeah, I see Shauna has highlighted a few things. Yes, I am talking about 20 or 30 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit, for washing those wool, silk and protein-based pieces. And I'm afraid I cannot tell you what that is now. Okay, so Lavelle is asking, is it okay to add the eucalyptus stems? Absolutely. Any part of the eucalyptus plant. I've never put wood in, like actual timber, but the stems, the flowers, the buds, the leaves, absolutely. You can use all of those and they will all really help. And here we have a question about, can dry eucalyptus leaves be used? Absolutely. You don't want to use leaves that have been dyed commercially to look a different color. And you don't want to use leaves, for example, that might have been prepared with glycerine. But if they've been dried naturally, they are absolutely perfect. So you can either add your dried eucalyptus leaves into your eco-printing pot to add color to that pot liquid or give depth to the pot liquid, or you can soak them in hot water just before you're going to eco-print until they are soft, or in cold water overnight, and they will give spectacular prints. Often, actually, dried leaves will give even better prints than fresh leaves. So this is a great question. I have dirty pot liquid using onion skins that I made during your last boot camp. Would I start a new pot if I want to try eucalyptus? If you were happy with the colors you were getting, the onion skins won't release any more color, so just take them out of the pot. If there's any mold on top of your pot, you need to put a mask on and remove the mold. But you can just boil the pot up again if you were happy with the colors that you were achieving. And you can just top it up with more water and add your eucalyptus leaves, and I would add more vinegar. If you weren't 100% happy with the color, or you'd like to start from scratch, just start again and work with clean water, vinegar and eucalyptus leaves. And yes, somebody here is saying that Trader Joe's sells amazing eucalyptus. I agree. Trader Joe's in America is fantastic. It usually has great eucalyptus. So absolutely. Another great question. This one here is from Kat. White or cider vinegar? Any vinegar, even balsamic vinegar. But please do not think that just because the vinegar is acidic that lemon juice will work. It won't, because I often get asked that. And lemon juice will actually bleach color. So you definitely do not want to use lemon juice. So any kind of vinegar will work. Okay, and I love upcycling. Yes, and I'm not quite sure what your name is, but Sun Heart Boho Clothing. I love upcycling. Me too. Absolutely. So, and here's a very good question. I live off the grid and can't use heated water in my washing machine. I only use cold. Will that be okay? Yes, but if you are, particularly with if you have new cotton in particular, say you go to a thrift store and you actually find some garments that are cotton and they are new, they will have a lot of finishing on them from the manufacturing process, and you really, really need to get that out of them for the garment to get the best color. Now, at the moment, we're talking about wool and silk, and I would just say I would do a hand wash with your wool and silk. If you're living off the grid, then you're not even using the electricity for your washing machine. But if it's cotton, I would say you might be better to actually, heat up a pot of water and use some hot water with cotton, just to make sure that all that finishing was off the fabric. Okay, so Mylan or Milan is saying, what a gorgeous combination. I am guessing that you were talking possibly about this outfit here, maybe, which is just, upcycling at its best with some new pieces. But yeah, upcycling is the business. Okay. And so, wow, we have more questions about the dirty pot. And okay, I'm going to just answer a few more of these, and then I'm going to move on to the protein-based fabric. And don't forget, tomorrow I'll show you step by step the eco printing. Okay, and talk more about vegetation. Bonnie, I have used my dirty pot several times and saved the liquid. So do I need to add vinegar each time I reuse the liquid? No, you don't need to add it every time, Bonnie. But if you're using eucalyptus leaves in your bundles, I would definitely recommend you add another pint or so, or half a litre of vinegar, because eucalyptus likes the acidic environment. Your vinegar, your pot liquid matures with time. And I would add more vinegar if you're going to eco print using a lot of eucalyptus leaves, because you will find that it helps sharpen their prints and give stronger prints. Penny's asking, do you know why eucalyptus is so special? I mean, for me, it's special because it's a beautiful tree. There are so many varieties. It gives wonderful results. It smells marvelous. I'm actually going to use some of my own eucalyptus leaves with olive oil and make eucalyptus oil for Christmas presents. I love the scent of it. I love everything about it. But I highly recommend that if you're interested in learning more about eucalyptus and you're looking for a really lovely book, Shauna, maybe you could please just write the name. The name of the book is called Eco Color, and it's by an Australian lady called India Flint, spelt exactly as it looks. So Eco Color by India Flint. And she has studied the eucalyptus tree extensively. And one of the reasons for me that eucalyptus is so special is it releases what's called a substantive dye. And a substantive dye is a dye that does not need a mordant. And in fact, I think that's why eucalyptus is so special in the dirty pot. You get a different range of colors as well as you do than you do when you're using mordants. Often the eucalyptus prints look more yellow if you're using mordants, I think, whereas they look more red in the dirty pot. And there's also an incredible Australian lady called Sally Blake who has a marvelous resource. And Shauna, if you could make a note of that, please, I would like to share that resource with people. We'll post the link in my public Facebook group. And I'm just going to, hang on one second. I'm going to just put a banner up on, here. So for those of you who are new to my presentations and the way I work, etc., if you're interested, I have a public Facebook group, and that's the name of the group there. And you're welcome to join that group, but we're discussing working without mordants there. We're discussing everything about eco printing in the dirty pot and felt making, which could be with colorful fiber or not. And I will share the link to Sally Blake as well, because she's done this huge amount of research about eucalyptus, and she's got an amazing resource that's publicly available with where she's dyed with each of the different eucalyptus varieties, and she's used mordants and not mordants, and you can see the different colors, and the range of colors is fantastic. So for me, eucalyptus trees are really special. I'm just going to go back here, and okay, I need to go back. I want to move on to cotton and cellulose fabric. Sarah has an interesting question here. Can I use aluminium containers that are used to roast turkey, etc., in the oven if I fail to get the real pot? First of all, Sarah, you won't have, I think they would be difficult to use and you would run the risk of really burning yourself. However, if you could find any sort of a big pot and crumple up some of those containers, those foil containers, I think that would work really. It would give you some aluminium in your pot, but it won't replace using an aluminium pot. And I think you would have to be really careful. I don't want anybody to get a bad burn or anything. I don't think that would be the best thing to do. Now, many people in America use big crock pots. We don't have them really. We don't have big ones here in Ireland. We're a small country with small pots. So if you have a crock pot, you can process in the crock pot, but I'm not that familiar with it, or a pressure cooker. And a turkey roaster is a great thing, because often you get secondhand turkey roasters that are aluminium or aluminum. Okay, so now let me see. Okay, here, thank you very much, Sabina. An easy way to have a reference. Wow, 28 Celsius is 82 Fahrenheit. So that means I recommend you don't wash your wool, silk, and protein-based fabrics and garments higher than 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Thank you so much. And Martina is saying, how can I get good clarity print on silk fabric in the dirty pot? It's a combination, Martina, of the pot and the pot liquid, the vegetation that you use, and the way you prepare your fabric, which I've already explained, and how tightly you tie your bundle. And tomorrow you're going to see me doing a bundle and seeing me tying. So it's just a combination of everything and using the correct vegetation. And the biggest thing I find is people get inspired, which I don't want to stop anybody's creativity, but people are so tempted to rush out to their garden and put all sorts of vegetation on. If you want a crisp, clear print, you need to use tried and true vegetation that works without powdered mordants, and you need to set your pot up correctly, and you need to process for the correct length of time at the correct temperature. So I'm just going to see. So I'm going to do this question before I move on to cellulose. So is there an alternative to eucalyptus? So onion skins work brilliantly every single time. And I honestly think that everybody should be able to get onion skins. So onion skins would be my top thing. They're brilliant. I mean, when I started eco printing, I did not have any eucalyptus trees here, none close to me, and I used onion skins all the time. And it's only over the years I've planted my trees, over 900 of them. I'm a bit obsessed with them. I've planted over 900 eucalyptus trees and about 12,500 other trees on my property. And now I have just incredible leaves for eco printing. And by the way, if you are enjoying this, please, could you just hit the like button and think of sharing with your friends tomorrow. And if you are new to YouTube, maybe you might like to consider checking out other things on my YouTube channel and subscribing to the channel. Okay, I'm going to move on now. I will go back to questions afterwards, but I want to move on to working with the protein-based fabric, how you prepare that, because people are wondering about preparing the protein or the cellulose. So the first thing is with cellulose fabric, what I'm sharing here is I would make homemade rust water, and I would be dipping my cellulose fabric into that rust water. I will discuss the rust water tomorrow. We're not going to discuss it today, but that's just an image of the rust water. So how do you prepare your cellulose fabric? So unlike the wool, the silk, the protein-based fabric, where we didn't go above 82 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Celsius, I use a hot wash in my washing machine, and I use an olive oil soap. And if you have any sodium carbonate, that is what you use to alter the pH in a swimming pool. You can add in a teaspoon of that or a teaspoon of washing soda, but you don't have to use the sodium carbonate, but you can. And then you put it in a hot wash. So if you live off the grid, again, you could do it in a saucepan over an open fire or something, or just make sure that you wash it for longer. Maybe make up an olive oil soap solution, leave your fabric soaking in that for a day, then give it a really good hand wash. And after it has been washed, you then need to soak your fabric, your garment, in plain water overnight. And then you're going to see how, we'll talk about that tomorrow. It's going to be dipped into the homemade rust water. You don't need to use vinegar, but you do use vinegar with your protein-based fabric. And again, tomorrow is the time for that when you see the step-by-step process. And then you bundle and you process for the length of time that your vegetation needs. So tomorrow I'll be giving you a list of a few different leaves that you can try and the length of time that you should try to process them for. And those leaves or onion skins, they can be used on cellulose or protein. And I would process them for the same length of time. And you can put cellulose and protein bundles in the pot at the same time. And I like to submerge all my cellulose-based fabric and my protein-based fabric into the dirty pot liquid. And that gives you the best results and the strongest prints. But if you're familiar with eco printing and you prefer to steam, you can steam over your dirty pot. But I really only do that if I'm maybe eco printing trousers, even though you're going to see trousers in a minute, and I actually submerge the trousers that I'm going to share with you. So I'm just going to share some prints, and I'm going to answer your questions, and then we're going to call it quits for tonight. And tomorrow I will share step by step either videos or images of the process. I have quite a bit of work to do tonight, collating that, and I have a meeting in an hour's time, so I need to get food before that meeting, but I will share step by step tomorrow. So this is actually some of the fabric for this piece that I'm wearing. So these are smoke bush leaves on organic HEMP. I'm not saying that word because YouTube can flag it, so I just don't want to do that. And here are blackberry leaves and rosebay willow herb seed pods. Rosebay willow herb is known as fireweed in many countries, and these are on old linen trousers that I got in a charity shop. And I absolutely love these trousers. I've had great wear out of these. And these were submerged as well. They weren't steamed, they were submerged. This is rosebay willow herb leaves on a very pale blue linen shirt. This is a man's shirt. I did this summer. And can you see how some of the prints look much darker than the others? Some are an outline and some look very dark. So the dark prints are where the back of the leaf makes contact with the fabric, and the outline with the stripe up the middle is where the front. And I absolutely love that effect. So I need to put some leaves up and some leaves down if I want a balanced print. And this is my buddy Paul. Paul teaches in our National Botanic Garden. He teaches, horticulture, botany, etc. to students in our National Botanic Gardens. And he came to me for a really fun eco printing workshop. So this was one of his own t-shirts. Now, we were printing silk and other fabric during the workshop, but he brought this t-shirt and he said, is there any chance I could upcycle my old t-shirt? Would it be possible? So we used rosebay willow herb, which isn't so obvious here. It must be on the back of it. And blackberry leaves, but isn't that really cool? I think he looks great in that t-shirt. So he's had great wear from that. And I want to emphasize again, everything that I'm sharing with you, if you stick to what I'm saying, you may not get the brightest colors, that you may not get the range of colors you get when you're working with mordants, but all of these pieces are fully washable afterwards and they will hold their color and prints. And that's what I want to help you have. I want you to have success. You saw this one yesterday, for those of you who were here yesterday, and that's blackberry leaves on an upcycled linen shirt. And blackberry leaves, raspberry leaves, and rose leaves are usually fairly reliable for eco printing. So now I'm just going to go back, answer the next few questions, and then we'll call it quits if that's okay, because I do need food. So Cynthia is asking, when the pot liquid evaporates due to boiling, do I top off the pot with plain water or vinegar and water? What proportions of both? So Cynthia, yes, you need to top up your pot as soon as the water goes down. You want your bundles to be well covered in the pot. So just top it up with water, or I like making what I call eucalyptus water. So if you have any spare eucalyptus leaves, twigs, or bark, put them in a big tub, soak them with plain water, and just top up with that water. It'll look brown, and that gives a delightful, it just adds a delightful note to your pot. And then just top up with just put some vinegar in when you're using a lot of eucalyptus leaves in your bundle. And, you can just add a pint of vinegar in. So don't worry about accurate proportions unless you're working with mordants. Just top up with either water or vinegar water. And very quickly, you will become used to what you actually like, the effects you like. For example, I like a lot of iron. So I have a rusty metal iron that I put on a string and I put into a pot. I have a rusty metal iron and I like that effect because it gives darker pot liquid. So I'm happy to keep that in, but you need to be careful not to leave it in if you don't have big commercial pots, because you put a hole in the side of your pot and it may be that your pieces look too dark. But tomorrow I'm going through the process from start to finish. Here's a question. How do I know whether my pan is made of aluminium? Now, if it's second-hand, they often look a very grayish silver. Many aluminium pots, certainly in Europe, they will actually have a stamp somewhere on it and it will say it's aluminium. And I think they may do in America as well. But I can't tell you for sure, but I can identify an aluminium pot as soon as I see it, but I can't tell you exactly how. It's a kind of a silvery gray color. And usually they're quite heavy compared to stainless steel. And the shop, if it's a shop or a thrift store, will probably be able to tell you whether it is aluminium or not. And okay, this is excellent. So Lavelle is saying, yes, she crumbles those kind of turkey roaster foil trays into a slow cooker and gets wonderful results. Thank you so much, Lavelle, for sharing that, because that's really good to know, because I've never used a slow cooker myself. So this is a good question. Can I roll my fabric in aluminium foil or aluminum foil? I tried and I got zero result from it. It's absolutely bizarre. You would think you would. So the answer is no, that's not going to help you. And okay. So a slow cooker is a crock pot. Thank you. This is really interesting. Jill is saying that black walnut is her go-to substantive plant material in the Midwest. And she wishes that she could easily grow eucalyptus. And this is really interesting because it's not a topic for this free boot camp. But I will say that I have black walnut. I've planted it here in my garden in Clasheen, and I can get no prints whatsoever from it in the dirty pot. Unless I'm doing tannin and iron reactions or working with the mordant, I get zero prints with my walnut. So the location that you all live in, the acidity of the soil, the age of the tree, the growing zone, every last thing makes a difference to how your vegetation prints. And that's why I'm very careful when I'm sharing vegetation with you tomorrow. I'm going to give you a limited list of vegetation, but I think you should get good results from it. And it's from my experience of teaching in different countries, I can tell you, what tends to work in other countries as well. And then Annie has a very good question. How often should she replace the eucalyptus in her pot? And I would say that after, well, first of all, if your pot is small, you may need to take it out more often. You won't be able to put more eucalyptus in. I sometimes top my pot up with fresher eucalyptus, but I'm working in big pots. And I would definitely say 4 sessions would be good. You can even leave it in for longer. But I would say after 5 or 6 sessions, you're not going to have the same effect. So I would replace it. Yeah, and this is interesting. I love the results I got with red onion skins. And I get interesting results with red onion skins, but I like the brown ones more. So it's all a matter of identifying your personal taste and the colors that you like, because I quite see why you like the result of red onion skins. It tends to give me more of a purpley color, and the brown or the other onion skins give me more of a goldy brown color. And Karen is saying she loves India Flint too. So if you want to follow India online, for example, on Instagram, her Instagram name is Prophet of Bloom. So she was well worth looking up. Okay, so Lisa's saying she started her iron water a few months ago and it's gone black. Is that because she left it? Okay, Lisa, can you please write another comment? And when you say your iron water, do you mean the rust water that you're dipping your cellulose fabric in, or do you mean your dirty pot, which may very well look black? So if you mean just pop that in as a comment, and then I will see that. Okay, Carolyn is asking where to buy olive oil soap. Carolyn, I'm not sure what country you're in. If you're in America, you could also use a Dr. Bonner's soap if you have to. Somewhere like Trader Joe's or Good Foods or somewhere should have that. If you're in Ireland or England, any health food shop will have olive oil soap. Any health food shop. TK Maxx usually has it. Yeah. And Jan is asking here, and does hard water make a difference, or should I use rainwater? I know some people would disagree with me, Jan, and India would probably disagree, but I have actually found that it doesn't make any difference what water you use. The thing that you need to do to achieve the good prints is you need to boil the pot. You need to get the pot at a bubbling boil. So the water that you use, and it could even be city water with plenty of chemicals, actually, ironically, doesn't make that much difference. It makes no difference. Lisa, you are obviously coming from a traditional background. That's how I prepare my cotton and linen. And if you're used to using something like Synthropol, I would still go ahead and then wash it afterwards with the olive oil soap. When you're working without the traditional mordants, I find that that is the best way of getting successful results. I can only share what I find work. So no, it works for me. And this is what works for me. And that's what I'm sharing with you. Francesca is asking, can you use the same dirty pot liquid for cellulose fabrics if you've already used it with vinegar for protein? Yes. And also, if I am using eucalyptus leaves in my cellulose bundles, I'm happy to put more vinegar into the pot, Francesca. So absolutely, I would process the bundles at the same time, no problem whatsoever. And you just continue using that dirty pot liquid. The only difference is you're preparing your fabric differently. You're not giving it the vinegar soak, but there's no problem with vinegar. And the odd time I'll put vinegar on cellulose fabric as well, but that's just for a bit of experimentation. I want to give you the foundations of setting up your pot and what you need to do at the beginning. Okay, so if anybody else has questions, now's the time to drop them in as a comment, because I'll be signing off shortly. So Beatrice has a question. In order to prepare fabrics in advance, can you wash, then soak overnight, and then let it dry on the day? Okay, so Beatrice, wash your fabric and dry it, but then soak it from the night before. Nothing makes the bigger difference than soaking it from the night before in the water, or overnight in the water before you print. If you only wet the fabric before you start the eco printing process, you will get nothing like the strength of prints you will get if you soak your fabric overnight. You're going to have to trust me on that. So if you want to prepare fabrics in advance, wash them, dry them, put them away, and then soak them the night before in your water. And this question really, it's sort of the same. I wouldn't worry at all about what water you have in your pot. You're boiling it. Any water will be fine. And Annie is saying she gets olive oil soap online. Linda likes the blackberry leaves. I love that. And here's a question. I love how all these pieces came out. And how is it the fabric didn't come out brown if they were dipped in the rust water? So I'm just going to go back to my rust water for a second. So we'll have a look at the color of it. And that's actually a great question. So here's my rust water. And it really does look very dirty and dark brown. But it's interesting. Once I print the pieces and then I take them out of the pot, they will look very dark at that stage. But when I wash them, all that brown rusty color has washed out. Now you can see some modification of color there across there and where the tie marks are, and there's a little bit more brown color in the middle there of that image, but that's actually because that image was rolled on rusty metal. So there is modification of color from the rusty metal, but the actual dark brown just washes out for me. And like, you're going to have to trust me. This is what I use. This isn't, I'm not making it up. This is what I use, and it does wash out. So Elise, I hope that's how you pronounce your name. The cellulose examples were not the yellowy orange like some of the protein samples. Is that because you didn't use onion skins? No, Elise, it's not. It's because the protein-based fabric and the cellulose fabric takes the color differently. Now, in the case of the onion skins, and I'll share a few more images with you of some of my work tomorrow, this particular jumper started out a pale pink color. I'll just get one of my cushions again. Okay, I've just got this from behind me. This here started out a natural undyed creamy, it's a locally woven lamb's wool for me. It was a creamy white color. And these are onion skins, and there was rusty metal in the pot, and that stripe down the middle shows that there was almost no vegetation in the pot, because I can tell it's not very dark down the middle. And I did this many years ago, but you can see the strength of the onion skin prints. So I'll just share some of my favorite vegetation with you tomorrow. It's a limited list of vegetation, and I'll give you an indication of the color you might expect. And you get a totally different result. You will never get that color on your cellulose fabric without doing different pre-treatments or using traditional mordants. And that's not what this is about. Question, should the water be at the same boiling temperature throughout? Yes. And I'll discuss that tomorrow. Aluminium is not magnetic. I'm not sure. Maybe that's in relation to using one of those stove tops. I'm not sure what that is. You can use them. Okay. Okay. Is it safe to print in my kitchen, or is it better outside? Annie or Anley? I think I might need glasses. It's always better to print outside, providing the conditions aren't windy, or in a garage or a shed. But yes, if you have ventilation in your kitchen, it is safe to print in your kitchen, but you need to make sure that you have windows, maybe a door open, and you could consider wearing a mask. I do print inside. Sometimes in the winter in particular, because I could have a wood-fired stove going, and obviously trying to be mindful of everything and economize and be mindful of energy. If my wood burning stove is going, well, then of course I will put a pot on top of that, but you need to make sure that you have ventilation. And okay. Have fresh eucalyptus dye, which I prepared earlier and haven't used it yet. Can I use this in the dirty pot? Absolutely. Yes, you can. Okay. Vivian is saying, I soaked an iron pipe in a stainless steel bowl with a generous amount of vinegar for a few days. I did not boil. From what I heard, I should have boiled. We'll discuss more tomorrow on this. Vivian, we're probably talking about two separate things. If you make your rust water, if you've made that in a stainless steel bowl, you don't need the rust water that you would be dipping your cellulose fabric in, such as mine here, does not have to be boiled. If you've left it for several days or a week, you don't have to boil it. So that's perfect as a rust water. I'm talking about setting up a new dirty pot, and that I do boil for about an hour before I use it. Linda, I'm not one of these people who weighs and measures. 3 liters of water is not enough for a dirty pot. That's going to be a tiny pot. Tiny pot. You need to have a bigger pot than that. So you're only going to be able to put enough vegetation in. You want your bundles to fit into the pot as well as the vegetation. So you're going to be restricted. You need a bigger pot, more liters of water, your vinegar, and then as much vegetation as you want to put in. The vegetation will modify the color, and with experience you learn what you like best. And then Catherine is asking a question, and this is Catherine obviously has some experience with either eco printing or natural dyes. So do you use any tannins on the fabric prior to submersion into the pot, like oak gall powder, etc.? No is the simple answer. And for this, for the purpose of this workshop, Catherine, no. But in the past, I have, for example, done some experiments where, yes, I've prepared fabric in homemade pomegranate tannin or in black tea or something. And of course, you get different results. But I certainly don't want to encourage anybody doing this boot camp to do that, because it's almost guaranteed that you will get exceptionally dark background colors if there's iron in the pot. And so no is the answer. I would say I might have done it 5 times in my eco printing career. Okay, so let me just see. Karen is just saying, and this is your final minute or two. I just want to flip down. I love how you give us so much information from experience. Yeah. And so that we don't make the same mistakes. And that's exactly what I want to do. Like, I want everybody to have success. But as soon as you go off piece and do one different thing, that alters everything. And it's the same with my ebook. Most people who buy my ebook experiment and start with what I recommend, but I do sometimes see people who are putting posts up in the Facebook group and they're saying, you know, got your ebook and you know, couldn't resist. I put X, Y, and Z into the pot, but I was not happy with the results. Well, the reason you were unhappy is because you didn't follow. It's like a formula. It's like a recipe. It's a bit like baking. I'm not the best at baking. I'm pretty good at doing savory dishes and all sorts of fruit-based dishes and certain gluten-free things, but I'm not good at baking a cake. And so if I don't follow the recipe, I'm not going to be able to make that cake. And it's the very same. If you're new to eco printing, why would you go off piece just because you have plants you like in your garden? Get the basics right and then experiment. Okay, so thanks for that comment, Karen. Can you use dried leaves, for example, blackberry for printing? Yes, you can definitely use dried leaves. And I'm not sure if you're following me on YouTube, but I have a really good little short video about saving leaves for eco printing. And there's also a free download. There's a link to a PDF in the video description, and you can download information about saving leaves. However, I would not bother saving blackberry leaves because they curl up and they just twist so much. But there are plenty of leaves that you can save, and you need to just soak them in a little bit of warm water or cold water for slightly longer until they're soft and flexible before you print with them. You can save leaves in the freezer. There's all sorts of ways, and you can get my PDF about that. Jill, thank you very much. I'm really happy you're saying strictly dirty pot, no tannins or mordants. Thank you, Jill. So Jill, for those of you who are in the Facebook group, Jill is going to post some pictures of her black walnut eco prints. That's brilliant. Thank you, because I know they work, but they just do not work for me here, which is really silly. So, okay, so Lisa is saying, if you remember, she had a question about her rust water looking really black. Okay, Lisa, if your rust water is really black, somehow I think you must have got tannin into it. So would it be possible that any leaves have gone in it? Because if tannin-rich leaves have got into your rust water, there will be an immediate reaction. There will be a tannin and iron reaction with the rust water, and I recommend you start your rust water again. Carolyn is in Canada. Carolyn, you should have no problem in Canada. I'm just trying to think. I can't think of the name of stores, but you should have absolutely no problem. But I know you could get olive oil soap from Maiwa. Maiwa's on Granville Island, maiwa.com. If you look them up, you'll get it as a felting supply. Yeah, so Nicola is saying eucalyptus are a huge problem in Portugal as they're so combustible and were a possible cause for the dreadful fires 5 years ago. I absolutely understand that, and I almost got caught in a fire myself. I was driving actually on a dirt track in Portugal through eucalyptus trees on my way along the coast, and there was a fire, and it was really very frightening. I absolutely hear totally there. I hear what you're saying, and that's another really good example. Eucalypts are native to Australia, but when you import them into other countries, I mean, here in Ireland, we have a very moist climate, so the fire is not going to be a danger, at least unless somebody sets them on fire deliberately. But in the Sonoran Desert, for example, there are, like where the saguaro cacti grow, there are all these eucalypts now, and they're so out of place, and it's just so sad for me to see them there. And Portugal is the same, where they've been planted for to produce biomass or paper and pulp. It is dreadful when you see an imported plant, and it grows very well, and it could become very invasive, and then there are issues with it. And yeah, I agree, they're very combustible. Okay, so this is a great question. Can you boil more than one bundle at a time, or will they influence each other? So absolutely, I encourage everybody to make sure that they only process, they get their bundles together and they process, at least 3 bundles together, ideally. 3 to 5 is a good number, because you don't want to be wasting that energy. We're trying to be mindful of the environment and use less resources as well. So absolutely, they will not influence each other. If 3 of them were on rusty metal pipes and another one had no rusty metal pipe, the rusty metal pipes will influence the pot liquid, but in that case, you don't need to have any rusty metal in your pot, but the prints will be good on all of them. And Salma's saying about the dried leaves. Yes, you can. You can soak it in the water for a while to soften it. Yeah, and this is interesting. Eucalyptus are an invasive species. You see, it really depends where you live. Certainly in Ireland, the agricultural sector are growing some of them for biomass now, and they're definitely not invasive here in Ireland. I hope a nice meal is waiting you. You deserve it. Thank you so much. I was helping care for my mother and another relative in Dublin today. So Mum and I actually had a nice meal out, and she doesn't have a big appetite, so I got some of hers to take away. So that's what I'm actually going to eat. And I'm going to have a glass of wine, and I've got a meeting in less than an hour. Do you keep the rusty metal object in the pot every time or after? So the rusty metal, once you have a bit more experience, I would take it out, and then you can see whether you like it with the rusty metal in or out. So if your prints are very dark and you want them lighter, I would take it out. If you want them darker, I would add it back in. What is the oldest? And golly, there's a good few more questions. I'm going to say cut on the questions now. So the oldest or the longest lasting dirty pot I've kept, probably 8 months, maybe, Dawn. And the only reason I would set a new dirty pot up would be if I wanted a totally different color range, or if I was going to facilitate a workshop somewhere else. I do some workshops in the community sometimes. I'm doing very few at the moment because I'm helping care for Mum and another relative. I have to, do things in Dublin on a weekly basis. So I'm not going to external workshops often. And so for that reason, I can just keep the dirty pot liquid going for a very long time. But if I have to pack the pots up and bring them in the car with me or in my pickup truck, I would need to set a new pot up. Okay. I am on a budget. I have to decide to either get your ebook or the 8-day course next week. I'm a total beginner. Which is better for me to get going? So that is actually a very good question. And I'm not quite sure how you absorb information. But I would say if you can afford the $49 workshop next week, you're going to have videos and you're going to have content, and there'll be PDFs for you to download. There'll be a short live stream from me at the beginning of each day explaining what's happening, and there'll be the opportunity to ask questions. So if you can afford the $49, I think you would get great value, and you'll be guaranteed to have success with my input. If you absorb things very well by reading them, the book is great. So you have that choice, but I think the $49, you're going to have access to the material. There's like a library of content. There'll be a private Facebook group for 6 to 8 weeks where you can upload images of your work and I can give you feedback. So that would be better value than the book, because you'll have me over an extended period of time in the Facebook group. And Marianne, I actually don't know. Somebody asked this question before, and I think the answer was no. So I would say no, but I don't know enough about soap nuts myself, but I would say no. Linda, I think I've answered that one, how much vegetation goes in. I don't think 3 liters is enough. It's not a big enough pot. Alison has a great question. Yes, Alison, absolutely. That's what I do myself. Just don't wear yourself out. So if you're a felt maker and you make a piece of felt and it's wet, I would just put it in water overnight and then I would just squeeze it out or spin it or roll it in a damp towel to get some of the water out the next day and add vinegar. Because if you've made a piece of felt and then you go on to eco print, you may be actually very tired, and you want to be mindful when you lay out the vegetation. Okay, I've answered that one. Just give me 1 sec to flick down. Cynthia's asking about, are the vapors from some plants that print toxic indoors? Cynthia, I'm not a chemist, and I'm not pretending to be a chemist. I don't find any toxic fumes myself from the plants that I use, but I used hydrangea leaves once. Oh my goodness, outside. The smell on my chest felt really tight. I would never, ever use hydrangea leaves again. And also they didn't give me good results, which was disappointing. But you definitely need to have your windows open. If you're using an aluminium pot, or if I'm using an aluminium pot, even though I have some for cooking, because it now is showing that aluminium doesn't have an effect on Alzheimer's, I believe. That was a theory at one stage, and that's why many people got rid of the pots. But I find if I'm processing for a long period of time with the aluminium pot and I have the rusty metal and the vinegar in it in the house, sometimes I get a slightly strange taste in my mouth, but I don't have any chest issues. And I've had 2 people who were allergic to the vinegar when the water was boiling, but once they put masks on, they were fine. Now, this is very interesting. So the magnetic comment had to do with somebody asking about knowing whether a pot was aluminium. If a magnet doesn't stick to it, it's more likely aluminium, because stainless steel attracts a magnet. Thank you so much for that. Sean, if you wouldn't mind making a note of that. I'm just about to wrap everything up, but if Shauna makes a note of that, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. So as my water evaporates, I replace more water. It seems like there's less iron in the water. Yes, there would be, because okay, is the iron molecule attaching to the fiber? Well, you're diluting it. Should I be adding more rust water with the other water, especially for a 5-hour boil? I personally, usually I wouldn't add rust water, but you can. I just have my rusty piece of metal in the pot on a string, and I judge by the color on the outside of the bundle whether I want more iron in the pot or not. But yes, you could add rust water if you wanted, but this is not for a beginner, folks. So please don't do that if this is your first thing. Karen is saying not worrying about exact amounts. Yeah, I love this. It's so much like how my grandmother taught me how to cook food. Me too. Little bit of this, of that, make notes, you'll figure it out. And that's absolutely true. And friends of mine who are either chemists or doctors or whatever, they've explained certain things to me, and I'm quite confident that what I'm sharing with you, wear your mask, have your ventilation. The difficulty with using traditional powdered mordants, it's actually not with them when they are in the solution, although there are environmental issues from the processing to achieve the mordant, but it's from inhaling them. So I'm quite happy with what I'm sharing with you. So there's a question here about the minimum size of a typical dirty pot in terms of volume. The pot that I use the most, let me get the pot again, 1 second. This pot here is 40 liters. Now, I can't tell you what that is in US in pints, but it's 40 liters. So it's about 80 pints, I think, a little bit over 80 pints. So that's a big pot. It's a commercial cooking pot. And that's a really good size. It's important that the pot is better if it's wider rather than taller, because you'll fit more bundles in. So the pot needs to be big enough to fit several bundles, but you can use what we in Ireland call a ham pot. It doesn't have to be 40 liters. There are all sorts of different pots that you can use. Okay, so Karen is saying, I love your ebook, but I want to use it and do the 8-day workshop. Woohoo! You're waiting on Big Pot and Cooker. That's going to be fabulous, Karen. And even if your pot hasn't arrived in time for the workshop, the 8-day thing next week, Please don't worry, because everything that I share, you're going to have access to the information and the videos for about 8 weeks, and there'll be PDFs to download with kind of important points. So you'll definitely get to use it, even if you don't get to use it on the first day or two. Okay, so Sarah's saying what time tomorrow? Same time again. The time is going to be 6 p.m. for tomorrow. And just give me 1 second now. I have to find this banner here and remove this comment. So my YouTube channel, I'll just pop this up here. So YouTube is youtube.com/c/Clasheen. So that's the name of my YouTube channel for those of you that are enjoying the video and you might like to sign up for the channel and subscribe to the channel. Then you'll get notifications, you know, when I'm going to post a new video or whatever. And there's loads of information. I've over 100 videos there now. Okay, so okay, this is a great tip. When will there be a next workshop? So, okay, 1 second. Hang on a second. I'm just coming down here. Yeah, you need to have a lid to keep the boil, but you can make a makeshift lid. If you don't have a lid, you know, you can make one. So, yes, you need to, and it will conserve energy as well. Okay, Cynthia, fantastic. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. So good. Can't wait for tomorrow. Woohoo. Yep. So just to say, tomorrow, the day 3 of the free bootcamp, I'm going to just take you step by step through eco-printing something, show you some more images. And then when that's all finished, I will launch a little launch, you know, just make the link available for the 49. But the following day on Thursday, I'm going to explain more about that, because there will be people who haven't watched the bootcamp, but who might want to do the workshop. So I'll explain more about what it entails and how it's going to run, and et cetera, but you will be able to join tomorrow night. Okay, so Catherine is asking, will the 8-day workshop be available to access outside of the time frame if we are unable to attend every day? Yes, Catherine, it's broken down. I still have to finish it. It's broken down into easy steps so that I'm just taking you day by day to something. Like, it's not going to be doing everything on the one day. It will all be done consecutively, and then you'll have access to all the videos. Let's just say you'll have access to the videos for definitely 6 weeks, but possibly 8, but definitely 6 weeks, and there'll be PDFs to download. So you've plenty of time. And then when will be then a next workshop? So tomorrow is the 2nd day of the free boot camp. If you mean another 49 event where I'm facilitating, there won't be another 49 one until sometime in 2023. There will be a $99 one sometime in December. Annie, thank you for your conversions. 40 liters is 42 quarts. Thank you. Ancient Spinner. Some large aluminium pots are more available. Oh, that's great. Where there is a Mexican population. And actually, that's a great point. I think also in Chinatowns, if there's a Chinatown, if you live near a city, and in some Chinese stores, you may well be able to get larger pots there as well. And tamales, yeah, I brought a tamale pot home from America once, but you need to be really careful. The aluminium is very fine. Usually they're not thick, heavy pots. So I would say you need to remove all your pot liquid. Even if you're going to process bundles the following day, I would remove your pot liquid overnight and I would rinse the pot out. Just don't pour hot liquid into a plastic bucket though, or a rubber bucket, because otherwise you might get holes in them. I put a hole in mine. I'm just looking at a few here. Thank you all so much. If you're already a member, would it be redundant to do the 8-day workshop? So it depends what you're a member of. If you're a member of my Eco Print and Wet Felt Club, the 8-day event, which I'm going to launch tomorrow after the boot camp, I'm not telling you the name of it yet, that is going to be I don't have the same videos and stuff in the 8-day event as there is in the Eco Print and Wet Felt Club, but in the club you have so much information from me anyway. So I would say if you're in the club, if you want to join in the fun and upcycle your garments, I would say definitely you can join the workshop, but you don't need to join the workshop from the information perspective. No, definitely not. But if you are a member of my Facebook group, that's totally different to the 8-day event that I'm running. The 8-day event is an event where I will be releasing information. I will be giving you videos and text and a live stream, and I'll be answering questions, and you'll have a private Facebook group, and we're going to have like a graduation ceremony, and you're all going to share what you've done, etc., etc. It's going to be great fun. So if you want to have good fun, meet people, it's totally different than the Facebook group. So Selma's asking, do I sell eucalyptus leaves? And if not, do I know where to get them in Europe? I tell you, I'm a little bit tired now, Selma, my brain, and I don't sell them. But if you lived in Ireland, I would happily give you some from my trees. But remind me about this after the workshop, after the 8-day event is over, and I will try and help you with that. I'm not sure where you're living. Paula, does the pot lid have to be aluminium? Nope. Mylin, I wish I knew how to pronounce your name. Thanks again for your outstanding talk, all the information, and looking forward to the next session tomorrow. Thank you very much. And somebody's asking, how can we get membership of your EcoPrint and Wet Felt Club? So thank you for asking. This is a subscription-based club. And during this year, it was only open for registration twice. Early in February, which was the launch of the club. And the founding members came in and they helped me, and we got, I was delivering the content, and they were helping me if they found things difficult to navigate. And then in August we had a big launch where we had a new intake of people, and it was only open to register for 4 days, and that is going to happen again at the end of January. So between now and then, there's the 8-day event for $49. There'll be a separate thing happening in December. That will be $99, and then the club will launch again. Okay, so Dawn, thank you, Dawn. I know I need to get a drink, I need to get some food, and I need to get ready for my next meeting. So thank you all so much. I've really, really enjoyed your company, and I look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow. And I'm going to just sign off now. And thanks, Laurie. I'm going to leave you with Laurie's lovely comment, because I need a quick word with Shauna. And I really look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you so much. Over and out from Clasheen.